Dustin Baker, VikesNow, the Thursday, April 14th edition. We're going to talk about why you should examine Kirk Cousins' contract differently. I know that is a controversial topic, but I figure we should tackle it. Yes, this was spurred into motion by the Derek Carr news, his $40-point-something million per year extension. So we're going to talk about that today. I have several reasons why you should look at the contract differently. The first is you need a different lens. Here's what happens. Same thing happened when Cousins signed on for $28 million per year, which was ungodly then, at least in terms of what a skeptic would say. Let's cut it down to brass tacks. $35 million is a lot of money, whether you own it or I have it in my bank account, which I don't, or anybody. It is a lot of money. There's no folks would say, yeah, it's a discount, it's a deal. But relatively speaking, $35 million for a football player who threw 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, that's right in the market value of where he should be. And it might even be too low based on those numbers. So here's what happens. We hear $35 million, especially fans who just catch the game, the box scores, maybe watch 4 or 5 games a year. Casual fans, sometimes they're called. You hear $35 million and you think, my God, that's a lot of money. Because it is. But compared to the rest of the crop of quarterbacks in the NFL right now, it's really right there. We'll get to what it is for, I think it's 8th most right now, this moment, per average annual salary. But I can tell you right now, in 2018, it was $28 million. Oh, God, he's making $28 million. He better win a Super Bowl. He didn't. No, now he's got a pay raise. He's making $35 million. And don't even get me started on the $45 million cap hit that never came to fruition. That was never going to come to fruition because it was always an inflection point of where the contract would stand this offseason. Maybe I will get into that. So he got a raise, $35 million. Well, he's getting a raise because of cap inflation. These numbers go up. There's a reason wide receivers are getting $30 million per year now with Tyreek Hill. So what happens is that everyday folks see Kirk Cousins making $35 million. Nobody makes more than that. That's got to be up there with the top guys. No, it is not. It is down there at 8th most right now, and I'll get to the pecking order here in a second. These are the quarterbacks who make more than Kirk Cousins per average annual salary. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, the man of the hour, Matthew Stafford, and Dak Prescott. Soon, that list will be joined with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, which puts Cousins right at 10th most. When you flush out the numbers at the end of each season, Cousins is usually about the 10th, 11th, or 12th best quarterback in the world, whether you use PFF, EPA per play, passer rating, QBR, mesh all those bitches together, and you usually have about the 10th or 11th best quarterback in the league. And that is why he's getting paid what he's paid. It just sounds sticker shock, $35 million. Oh my God, why are we doing this? Well, because the guy produces. He throws touchdowns. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Scoring, moving the ball down the field, and not turning the ball over. So Derek Carr, he got the big deal. He got more money than Cousins. Since Cousins joined the Vikings and Carr was on the Raiders, Cousins has accounted for about 25 more touchdowns and 5 fewer interceptions. People like Carr. I don't know if his name's cooler than Kirk Cousins or what the deal is with Carr. He's got longer hair that makes him cool. I don't know. But there's this voodoo where Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, and Matthew Stafford, all about the same guy. Mathematically, per the numbers, Cousins just happens to be the guy that nobody cares for compared to those dudes. But their production on the field, they're bedfellows. So when Stafford breaks through to win a Super Bowl, there is a school of thought that says, oh, if you tossed Cousins or Carr into that McVay system with all of these Hollywood squares worth of Los Angeles Rams, they too could win a Super Bowl. And that's what the Vikings are banking on, hiring a very coach from that staff and Kevin O'Connell to come do the same with Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. But Derek Carr, he got paid more than Cousins. Do you think he's better than Kirk Cousins? Tell me why. Put them in the comments. I'd like to know. And this other notion that I wish Cousins would take a team-friendly deal. You need a different lens for that because there's only one person in the world who does that in football at quarterback, and that's Tom Brady. because evidently the man is a walking endorsement. He has GOAT tendencies, and he doesn't need the respect of being paid $50 million per year. So in that 10th best ranking that I mentioned, or 10th highest paid for Cousins, that should be 11th, because Brady should be right up there with Rodgers, Watson, and Mahomes. But he's not. He takes the proverbial discount. He's the only dude, quarterback-wise, that does that. So we should stop asking Cousins. We should stop asking every other quarterback to take a team-friendly deal, because you wouldn't do it at your job, and none of these other guys do it. It's only Brady. It's the Brady exception. Document that. Know that quarterbacks don't take discounts unless their name is Tom Brady. It just adds to his legacy as well. Like, the guy plays for cheap. It's pretty masterful. So the deal on Cousins, and I think I've touched on this on the show. I know I've said it on the podcast with Kenny and certainly tweeted it. The man is not an elite quarterback. He is a damn good quarterback. Wouldn't you know it? In that same vein as Stafford and Carr, there are stretches, usually in October, usually in November, where Cousins does play elite. You know the games that I'm talking about. Son of a bitch gets hot. He looks like, wow, this is the guy that Rick Spielman signed in 2018. But that's, 6 games at the max? And then other than that, he's pretty good. Like, he's not a nincompoop. There are certain games, there's at least a turd and a half per year that he authors. And you hate to see it. As 2020 was against the Colts, the Falcons, he wasn't that great. But you're always going to get one certifiable turd from Kirk Cousins, whether it's a half or it's a full game. God forbid it's 2 games. Those are coming. Unfortunately for his sake, those happened down the stretch during the 2018 season when he had his Welcome to Minnesota campaign, and he and the team collapsed, didn't reach the postseason. Sour taste in your mouth, sour taste in my mouth. Difference between me and the masses is I was like, all right, that sucked. Let's see what he can do next year. Well, he went down to New Orleans, won a playoff game in a clutch fashion. So you know that gene lives in his brain and stomach somewhere. You've seen it. So yeah, I wish that folks could level set. Kirk Cousins is not paid elite dollars. He's paid about the 10th most in the league. Surprise, surprise, he's about the 10th best quarterback. He's not going to be consistently elite. He will show glimpses of it. Thank God. Hopefully it happens in January and February at some point. But I don't think even the most ardent of Cousins supporters think that the guy is a top 5 type of passer. You'd be a lunatic to put him at number 5. There's too many other good quarterbacks that are better than him. But the money aptly plops him right where he should be, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah knew it. Only thing that sucked about that extension is that you had to throw in a no-trade clause. So if we're chilling here a year from now, and we're like, oh, God, the Vikings went 9-8, missed the playoffs, son of a gun, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult to trade him elsewhere. Whereas this offseason, you could send him to the Jets, to Siberia, wherever you wanted to, and he couldn't do a damn thing about it. Another issue, these quarterbacks' salaries are only going to continue and increase with the gambling money, the TV money. $35 million when I'm recording this show in 2025, just like 28 feels from 2018, that's going to feel cheap. Like, why did we complain about this guy playing on $35 million? It's the way that it's the way that the economy works. Stuff goes up. And so $35 million, I know it drives some folks mad, but in the grand scheme of quarterback contracts, these things are going to continue to go up. Even next year, if they don't have to renegotiate again, it's going to feel like $35 million. God, Cousins is going to be now 15th highest paid in the world. Maybe that'll be the kumbaya where Vikings fans finally get behind him, because it's always been about the money for fans' perception of Cousins. Erroneously, people say he's paid like an elite quarterback, and he's flat out not. Pull up Over the Cap, pull up SpotRack.com, and you're going to find that Cousins is not paid elite. Somewhat close, but not elite like the rest of the guys. When we embarked on this offseason, the choice was to re-up with Cousins or rebuild or get some imbecile veteran quarterback like Trubisky for the Steelers. And the Vikings chose to stick with Cousins because I believe they have the mindset. Look what Stafford did in Los Angeles. A habitual loser quarterback. 74-90 was his quarterback record in Detroit. Bada bing, he goes to Los Angeles. It helps when you have Aaron Donald. Helps when you have Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, the rest of the gang. Odell Beckham, by the way, Von Miller. Of course, you're going to win a Super Bowl when you have that. That is the mentality for Cousins and the Vikings. Now, they don't have that much firepower, but who knows? If they can get hot, we'll see what happens. They weren't going to rebuild because the Vikings don't rebuild. And there's what I think people like is the idea or the word rebuilding, because it signifies a brand new, fresh start that can't go wrong, because we're going to find our Burrow, our Joe Burrow. We're going to get Mahomes. We're going to draft our guy, and it's going to go peachy. I don't see evidence where rebuilds are a rubber stamp to success. It's a fabulous term that inspires hope. It's almost like, not necessarily hope, but you remember back in 70s and 80s when the United States had the war on drugs. Sounds fabulous. We're going to war with cocaine and heroin and all this nasty shit, and we're going to eradicate it. Well, the problem is that you didn't eradicate it. You put people behind bars who were addicted instead of going to the root cause, which was addiction, obviously, vis-a-vis poverty, generational wealth, whatever you want to call it. People are addicted to drugs because they have nothing else to turn to. So when you brand it as a war on drugs for the first couple months, years, it sounds fabulous. Just like rebuilding sounds fabulous. But if you don't get to the root cause of what the problem was on your football team, you're just rebuilding to rebuild. So, for example, you're going to look at Cousins last year. Virtually no garbage time. I think there was a sliver of it in the Rams game. He threw 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You don't think that's good? No good? That's just average? Anybody can do that? No, they can't. Instead of finger pointing the guy that authored that stat line, 33 touchdowns to just 7 picks, you need to look at what the real culprit was, which was situational defense. The team at the end of second quarter and fourth quarter, final 2 minutes, final 4 minutes, whatever metric you want to look at, were historically shitty. No good. And then we spend 2 months debating, well, is the quarterback the problem? It's like, do you watch the football games? Did you see the end of these halves? Now, the defense as a whole wasn't terrible, but in these spots that mattered, crucial spots, they stunk. Cousins' fault, evidently. Everything else is. So I need you to look at what the guy does is in a team sense. Cousins doesn't play at Wimbledon. He's not a tennis player. The Vikings don't play tennis. It's a 53-man team sport. And if you think 33 touchdowns and 7 picks and no garbage time is like, oh, yeah, we'll go find another guy that does that. Good luck. It's going to take you a long time. You're going to end up with Bridgewater types who toss 16 touchdowns and 10 picks. And you'll get back on that carousel of quarterback inconsistency that the Vikings have had since this guy became a fan in 1996. Ultimately, in terms of the perspective on why you should examine the Kirk Cousins contract differently, is right now he's bedfellows for annual earnings with Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. Wentz makes $33.5 million per year, and Goff makes $32 million per year. Nobody cares. Nobody savages those guys, especially your Purple Viking fan friends. Nobody cares about that. No, yeah, well, those are bad contracts. They don't affect my life. Well, Cousins' bad contract is right there. $35 million for him, $33.5 for Wentz, $32 for Goff. So I just have this sneaking suspicion that if you got your wish, the rebuild crowd or the anti-Cousins crowd, whatever you call yourselves, that if he was traded this offseason or he gets traded next offseason, we'll try the rebuild thing. Probably end up having a pretty fabulous team around the quarterback because you'll have more money to spend on assets. But don't you have the nagging suspicion that 2 years into it, the team's maybe pretty decent, and you're like, God, we just need that quarterback to get us over the top. Man, we just need a quarterback who consistently throws 30 touchdowns. You have it. And some of you don't embrace it. The guy throws 4,000 yards like the sun rises per season. Multiple scenarios. Washington, varying coaching staffs with the Vikings, at least offensive coordinators. So that's always been my fear, is that we would try the rebuild thing or we'd sign on for some other guy, and then we'll look around at each other in 2024 and be like, God, we just need that quarterback who can account for those touchdowns and be consistent. Well, you have him on the team. Why don't you try building the roster around him? All right, so that's my speech on why you should examine the contract differently. You have to have perspective when you evaluate whether or not a man is overpaid or underpaid or just right, based on his habitual statistical production And compared to other quarterbacks in the business, Cousins is right where he should be, about the 10th best. And if Brady actually was like the rest of the world with his demands, he'd be about the 11th best, which is even closer to power rankings of where Cousins deserves to be. We'll be back tomorrow, alas, with Nick Olson. I got draft questions, free agent questions. He's going to be fabulous. All I got today, and Skol, baby.